You lose the game. Dylan Gabriel, I feel like Shador Sanders should be, given consideration. Cleveland isn't doing anything this year. Why not just put him out there and see what he could do? I mean, they have 8 games remaining. They play the Ravens next week. Why not put Shador in and see, what he could do? Because I know Jimmy Haslam was more of the reason the team drafted him, but it's like it seems like they're just throwing Dylan Gabriel out there, and it's like why not put Shador out there? Why not have him play some games and at least maybe see what you have in him? Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. And with no further ado, let's get into the weekly recap for week 10 now, because we're now over halfway through the season. And let's start off back with Thursday Night Football, Raiders and Broncos. I mean, very interesting game. Denver's defense, I mean, despite no Patrick Surtain, have been amazing. I mean, they're still looking like they're looking better than they did last year without the reigning defense player of the year, which is crazy. But this offense is, I mean, still maddeningly inconsistent. Like, I don't know if Bo Nix is the problem, if Sean Payton's play calling is the problem, if Sean Payton doesn't trust Bo Nix. Like, it just seems like this Broncos team just never wants to play in the first half. And then finally starts playing offense in the second half just enough for they can win the game. Like it just doesn't make any sense. And I think, like they've won 7 straight games, but I think Denver will eventually lose these games where they just don't show up in that first half. And I think it'll eventually we'll start to lose these games. Um, Especially with the Chargers and Chiefs playing really well football. I think the Broncos, who can still win the West, I just think with how bad this offense has looked, they're eventually going to lose these games against better teams. Moving on for the Raiders' sake, I mean, this is a game where it's like they won the turnover battle. They were shutting down Denver's offense for the most part. They just couldn't really do anything against a good Denver defense. I mean, if Vegas was just a touch better, like if their offensive line was just like a little bit better, giving Gino more time to throw the ball, and they had better playmakers outside of Bowers, who they didn't even use, the Raiders would have won this game. So it's like they're 2-7, and honestly, I mean, this is probably as bad as they were last year. And this Raiders team just is not getting any better for a team that everybody thought in the offseason was going to be much more competitive. And while they have looked competitive in recent weeks, this team just does not look good. And they need to make changes in the offseason if they truly want to compete with the big dogs, or else they're just going to continue to be last place in this division. Moving on to the Berlin, Germany game, Colts, Falcons, and I mean Jonathan Taylor, he deserves to be in the MVP conversation. He's on pace to, I mean, break LT's records when he won MVP, which is crazy to say, but I mean Jonathan Taylor has been amazing. And this Colts team, 8-2, first place in the entire league. And it is crazy to say that. But this Colts team, they're for real. That Steelers loss, I think, was just like a fluky loss where it's like Pittsburgh just, the defense came to play and the offense was able to do stuff. But sorry about that. But this Colts team, for real, they head on the bye. And with the Jags losing, I mean, Indy has a straight path to winning this division and maybe being the number 1 seed. Although they do have some competitors like Denver and New England, so we'll see how the season plays out. But Indy looks fantastic, and they look like a Super Bowl contender. For Atlanta, I mean, just another maddening, inconsistent loss. Like they've had like this 4 game losing streak that they're on is like all four of those games were winnable, including the Dolphins blowout. But it's just like they just find ways to lose these games. Like I do truly think that Atlanta does need to consider firing Raheem Morris, firing Zach Robinson, bringing in somebody who actually can help this team become who they're supposed to be. Because on the roster, the talent is phenomenal. Like if you looked at this team from top to bottom, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is a playoff team. For some reason, this team just finds ways to like lose. Like last week against the Patriots, the defense was dominating Drake May. You know, the offense was starting to get drives going. You missed the field goal. Here against the Colts, you have the lead at multiple times. You keep in pace with them. But then at the end, they just let the game slip away and allow the Colts to get away with the victory. They're 3-6. They have the Panthers next week, which maybe could be a win, but with how Atlanta's been playing, I mean, who knows? And speaking of the Panthers, they lost a brutal game to the New Orleans Saints. Tyler Shuck did look really good. Now, it was Carolina's defense, which is playing better, but he looked really good. You know, we'll see how he plays the rest of the year. But, you know, a lot of people are saying, oh, New Orleans should give him a shot next year because, you know, he looked really good and there might not be a QB to draft. And it's like, I mean, the QB class isn't the greatest, like everybody thought in the offseason, although there are some guys in Mendoza and Simpson, and if Dante Moore does declare. Um, but I mean, Shuck looked phenomenal, but I don't think you can really say, oh, New Orleans should keep him around because he had one good game. Let's see how he does against the rest of the competition, these final 7 games, and see if the Saints can do something. We're not going to make the playoffs, but maybe win some late games down the year. Like I kind of see New Orleans this year, kind of like the Cardinals in 2023, a team most people thought would be contending for the #1 pick. Instead, pulled off some upsets and finished with like 3 or 4 wins and look to be heading in the right direction. Moving on to the Giants at the Bears. Oh wait, my bad. I didn't even talk about the Panthers. I mean Carolina. I mean this is a game Carolina had to have, and honestly, this team is so confusing, just like Atlanta. Like they have a huge win last week against the Packers on the road, and you're thinking, hey, maybe this Panthers team is for real. And then they go ahead, they lose to a bad Saints team at home, and it just doesn't make sense. Bryce Young had probably one of his worst games of the year so far, and I mean, I just don't understand what the Panthers are. Like some weeks they look like they could be maybe a team that could like contend with the big dogs. Other times they look like they could lose to the worst team in the league. So it confuses me what the Panthers are week to week. Now moving on to the Giants at the Bears. Sorry about that. Chicago, I mean, another great win. I mean, in past regimes like Eberflus, Nagy, even John Fox in the later years, he was the coach. A lot of these games would have been lost where they're down double digits. The other team's clearly, dominating the game. They would find these games to lose, but Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, this Bears team has found ways to win. They have pulled off, couple, clutch games, and Ben Johnson really has turned this, I think, culture around. Now, we'll see. Because Matt Nagy hit his first year, the Bears, made it to the playoffs, won the North, and then they fell off. But I mean, they're winning games that past regimes probably would have found ways to lose. We talked about last week against the Bengals, this week against the Giants. I mean, shout out to Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, and the Bears organization. Maybe finally finding the right coach and QB to finally put this team over it. For the Giants, I mean, it's been a disappointing year. They fired Brian Daboll, which, I mean, I've seen people act like Daboll shouldn't have been fired, but it's like since 2023, the guy's 11-33 as a head coach. And it's games like this where it's like, it's clear this is on the coach. Yes, he was the one who wanted Jackson Dart, not Joe Shane, and Dart's worked out. And yes, the Giants roster isn't the greatest, but it's like a lot of these losses the last couple of years post, his first year in 2022, a lot of them have come like this where it's like the Giants seemingly have a huge upset win and then they find ways to lose it. And it was inevitable. Now, I don't understand why they're keeping Joe Shane. Like, it's the third time since 2015 I saw where the Giants are firing their head coach, but not firing the GM along with them. And both of their times, 2 years later, the GM ended up getting fired. So it's like, what's the point of even keeping that GM around when you should fire him alongside him, bring in a new coach and GM like we see with plenty of teams around the league and have them build this team? You have Jackson Dart, you have Malik Neighbors, Cam Scatterboo. The defense has playmakers all around it. It's like the Giants need to fire Joe Shane if they really want to get back to those glory days, or else they're just going to continue to do the same thing they do. Fire the head coach, keep the GM, fire the GM 2 years later, and then bring in, a coach and GM that later gets fired. Moving on to the Jags at the Texans. I mean, give credit to Houston. No CJ Stroud. Down 19 entering the fourth quarter. You're thinking this team's dead to rights, but give credit to Davis Mills. Give credit to this offense and D'Amico Ryan's defense for, keeping this team in the game. Like, Jacksonville had all the momentum. Houston couldn't do anything on offense while the Jags were running up and down the field. You're thinking, hey, Jacksonville's going to run away with this game. It's going to be a blowout. No, Houston comes back. 26 points in the fourth quarter, including that fumble recovery at the end of the game that led for a touchdown. And Houston's got Tennessee next week. They could be 5-5. And I'm not saying they're making the playoffs, but they have a realistic path after a huge win to keep this season alive. I mean, if you fought a 3-6, it's kind of like, well, I mean, are we really going to try to compete? But you're 4-5. You have a winnable game next week. You could be 500. And with 7 games to go, they could be looking at, a chance to maybe at least make the playoffs. And, give credit to Davis Mills. First start since the 2022 season, and he looked phenomenal late in that game, including that huge rushing touchdown. So, props to Houston. I thought this was going to be a good game. Glad to see Houston was able to come back and win it. For Jacksonville, I mean, this is just another one of those losses. And we talk about Ben Johnson, changing, the status quo with the Bears. Liam Cohen, at least early on, it felt like he was doing that. Get the huge win over the Chiefs. You're thinking this team's 4-1, tied for first place. Jacksonville could be a real contender. They've now lost 3 of their last 4, and all 3 games, maybe outside the Rams game, so 2 of the 3 games were winnable games that they just let slip away because this team never plays a full 60 minutes. And I get they have injuries, but every team at this point has injuries. I mean, Houston was starting a backup quarterback. And it's just crazy. I mean, the Jags had all the momentum entering the fourth. All they needed was to, put up maybe a score or two more, hold Houston's offense that hadn't done much all game, and instead they completely fell apart. And obviously they're not going to fire Liam Cohen, but we need to see Jacksonville turn the corner and start winning games that other regimes in Jacksonville wouldn't have won, or else Liam Cohen might just be fired because this team just is not really evolving into a team you'd hope they'd be. Moving on to probably the upset of the week. Dolphins over the Bills. Shout out Mike McDaniel. Is he the long-term coach? We'll see, but I mean, give credit to this Dolphins team. They looked phenomenal. Tua, probably his best game of the year. Jalen Waddle played amazing. The defense stepped up. I mean, Miami looked really good. And you just got to give credit to Mike McDaniel keeping this team together. After the loss to Baltimore, I said, Miami probably finishes with a top five pick, but they have some winnable games coming up. You have Washington, who's been maddenly injured and struggling even with the guys on the field. Then they play the Saints, the Jets. They have some winnable games coming up, and they could be, they could have 5, 6, even maybe 7 wins, and finish the year out strong. And maybe McDaniel gets another year because they bring in a GM who actually can build a roster to actually compete. And maybe this Dolphins team, can win with this current core. We'll have to see, but a huge upset when most people probably thought the Bills were just going to do what they always do and dominate. For Buffalo, I mean, this is another reason why that's why I was so hesitant to pit them again when I made my midseason predictions, because off the bye, Buffalo looked amazing. I mean, you get the huge win over Kansas City. The defense was starting to play well. The offense was getting into a groove. You're thinking, hey, this is a Bills team that could compete for the top seed in the AFC. And then you go and lose to the Dolphins, who have nothing to play for. They're just playing to pull off the upset, and they do. And the Bills are now 6-3, now 2.5 games back of 2.5 games back of New England. And it's just crazy that this Bills team went from a Super Bowl contender to losing back to back to then winning back to back, and now falling to a bad Dolphins team. 6-3. Obviously Buffalo can still be, a Super Bowl contender, but it's like with losses like this, how effective can the Bills be? Especially how bad this run defense is. I mean, Devon Achane was running up and down like it was a track meet. Moving on, Ravens at the Vikings. I mean, this was a game where you just say a win is a win. The Ravens, the offense didn't play their best game against a really strong Vikings defense, but the Ravens defense and special teams came up huge. Tyler Loop made plenty of field goals. I mean, a couple of forced fumbles on those punt returns and a couple picks on McCarthy. So this was just, the offense wasn't really doing it, but the defense and special teams for the Ravens came up clutch. They've won 3 straight. You have the Browns, Jets, and Bengals in their next 3 before matching up with the Steelers after Thanksgiving. They could be 7-5, and that Steelers game could be for first place. So give credit to Baltimore. I mean, we all knew at 1-5 they weren't a true 1-5 team like most 1-5 teams are, but they've won 3 straight. The offense has played good. The defense has played good. I mean, the Ravens can truly make the Super Bowl. It's just, will they be able to? For Minnesota, I mean, a very frustrating loss because they had the Ravens on the ropes. The offense for Baltimore wasn't doing much because Minnesota's defense was playing phenomenal It's just their offense couldn't do much. JJ McCarthy did not look very good after a huge win last week. May thought he could continue that into this week. He did not play well. Multiple picks, which both picks were not the greatest. Justin Jefferson didn't play that well. He might have been shut down by Nate Wiggins, which is crazy to say for Jefferson, but like this offense just could not do anything for the most part, and their defense was just keeping them in. They were like, "Hey, we, have this game close," and they just couldn't take advantage. They're 4-5. They have the Bears next week. The season isn't over because McCarthy, I think, still will continue to play well, but it is interesting to see the Vikings a huge win last week against Detroit, but then fall to the Ravens. And John Harbaugh apparently became the first head coach to win in every NFL city now that he's being Minnesota. Moving on to the Browns at the Jets. And give credit to New York. I mean, after a fire sale trading Sauce Gardner, Quentin Williams, a lot of people thought New York was going to be tanking, but Aaron Glenn had this team fighting. I mean, the offense couldn't do much outside of Brees Hall playing well. Hope Garrett Wilson is well because he re-injured that knee. He injured a couple weeks ago, so hope he is good for the rest of the year. But give credit to this Jets defense. Without their top, trade away their top two players on the defense that hadn't been that great. It was the Browns offense, so I'm not going to say it was like some terrific, but give credit to Aaron Glenn. He's got this team now back-to-back wins, and they play the Dolphins, who pull off that upset against Buffalo, but they could win that game, and maybe they spoil some other teams late in the year, finish with 4 or 5 wins, and maybe enter the offseason with a little more of, hey, we can be pretty good. And just shout out to the Jets. I mean, you get the win. You're 2-7, back-to-back wins after losing 7 straight to begin the year. So you got to give credit. For Cleveland, I mean, this is a game you needed to win. I mean, you were 2-6. You had a chance to be 3-6 against a team that blatantly is tanking. Because you trade away your top players on defense, basically saying, hey, we would rather trade away our top guys than keep them around, and you lose the game. Dylan Gabriel, he had a pretty good game, but I feel like Shedeur Sanders should be, given consideration. Cleveland isn't doing anything this year. Why not just put him out there and see what he could do? I mean, they have 8 games remaining. They play the Ravens next week. Why not put Shedeur in and see, what he could do? Because I know Jimmy Haslam was more of the reason the team drafted him, but it's like, it seems like they're just throwing Dylan Gabriel out there, and it's like, why not put Shedeur out there? Why not have him play some games and at least maybe see what you have in him? But this Cleveland team, 2-7, and hopefully they have a new, at least head coach. I mean, Andrew Berry is a pretty good GM. Like, he's made some smart moves. The Deshaun Watson move, you can't really put on him because it was more so the owner, Jimmy Haslam, wanted Watson, and Barry, obviously wanted to keep his job, made the move. But Kevin Stefanski, I think, needs to be fired, at least after the season, if not now, because this Cleveland team is just not playing well, and they have fun, exciting young guys from this 25 class that they can build around, along with Myles Garrett and some other veterans. They just need a new change at head coach and maybe GM. Moving on to the Patriots at the Bucks. I mean, good week for New England. They get the win. Buffalo loses. They're 8-2. I guess technically tied for first place with Indy and Denver, but the Colts have the tiebreaker because they beat Denver, and I think it's record wise, like in the conference, they have the tiebreaker over New England. But give credit to the Pats. This offense, slow start, but played well. Drake May in the MVP conversation. I personally wouldn't give it to him just because yes, he's been playing good, but he hasn't really been playing like a second year MVP guys. Like I feel like Jonathan Taylor's more deserving, maybe Matthew Stafford. Like I feel like there's other guys who are more deserving, but May is still playing phenomenal. I mean, Travion Henderson, amazing week. You know, we all knew once Mike Vrabel gave him, the sole running back, um, bell cow, you know, he was going to play phenomenal. Had that huge run late in the game to seal it up. I mean, this Patriots defense playing well. They're 8-2. They have a shot for the top seed. We'll see how New England plays in the playoffs because they are a young team. But they can be a serious threat with how wide open the AFC looks. Moving on to the 4 o'clock games, starting off Seattle hosting Arizona. I mean, Seattle looks like a Super Bowl contender. This defense is amazing. I mean, Demarcus Lawrence, the defensive end, scored 2 touchdowns, which is crazy to say. They put up 38 points in the first half. The second time they've done that this year. Sam Darnold, JSN, Rashid Shaheed. This offense is clicking. The defense is looking better each week. I mean, Seattle, a huge game next week in LA against the Rams, but I'm pretty sure they're number one. They're like top seed in the NFC. So we could see the Seahawks team maybe be a top 2 seed and make a run to the Super Bowl because of how good their offensive defensive play. Like they have looked phenomenal, and I mean they're 7-2 for a reason, and their 2 losses. Week 1 loss against the Niners that obviously doesn't look the greatest, but it was also week 1, and San Fran was mostly healthy that game. Then they lost to a really good Bucks team, so it's like they're 7-2. I mean, if they beat the Rams, you could tell me you can't tell me they wouldn't be the number one team in the NFC because of how great they have looked on both sides of the ball. For Arizona, I mean, when you name Jacoby Brissett your starter, you're kind of telling everybody, hey, we are just moving on to next year. Brissett had a good game against a bad Cowboys defense, but against a really good defense, obviously struggled. The score makes it seem like it was closer than it really was. It was 35-0 at one point, 38 to 7.5. So Seattle dominated from start to finish. Arizona, most likely going to move on for Kyler Murray in the offseason. You just got to say, hey, maybe we win a couple more games, but if you're the Cardinals, maybe you want to lose to get a top pick and be able to get your franchise QB, hopefully. We'll see if Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort are still employed after the year, but if you're Arizona, you just look towards the future and hope that things are going to be brighter in the years to come. Moving on to another NFC West class, the Rams at the Niners and LA. I mean, Stafford looks amazing. I mean, he might be front runner with Jonathan Taylor to be MVP. I mean, these two guys on probably the maybe top 2 teams in the league have looked amazing. I mean, I'm pretty sure he leads the league in passing touchdowns with 25. And it's crazy. All off season, people were saying, Stafford going to be okay with that back injury? Well, clearly, there was nothing to be worried about because he has been amazing. This Rams team, their defense, obviously, we all know it was great, but it's a phenomenal defense. The offense looks great. They're 7-2, a huge matchup next week with the Seahawks for sole possession of the first place in the NFC West. Maybe the number 1 seed. So shout out LA. For San Fran, I mean, look, they're injured, but they still can make the playoffs. This offense still is really good. They have some easy games coming up. They're 6-4. They still have a shot to make the playoffs, but they're just not going to be a real contender. There's a reason why, despite all the injuries, San Fran didn't really go out there and try to make a splash. Like, yeah, they brought in Keon White, but they didn't really make a splash because they knew we're not contenders. We'd rather, make the playoffs, lose in the wild card round saying, hey, next year we're going to be healthier, hopefully, and we can be back to playing, Niners football, and we can be back to contending in the NFC West. Moving on to the Lions at the Commanders. Detroit. Dan Campbell took over play calling duties, and the offense looked amazing. So maybe Dan Campbell needs to be the OC. All jokes aside, this Detroit team looked amazing. The offense is great, the defense is great. 6-3. The first time they had scored more than I think 24 points since like week 6, I want to say, something like that. Like they were on like a drought where it's like they weren't really putting up a lot of points, and it's good to see this Lions team playing well. It was Washington, but they're 6-3, and they have a huge matchup next week on Sunday Night Football against the Eagles. A huge clash in the NFC. For Washington, the injuries continue to come, and Dan Quinn is now taking over defensive coordinator, play calling, and demoting Joe Witt, which is the right decision because of how bad this defense has been. I don't think many things are going to save Washington's season. They're 3-7. They have the Dolphins next week in Madrid. Maybe they get the win, but you'll most likely enter your bye at 3-8 or 4-7, with the season basically over with. You just hope that maybe you can get some wins down the stretch, make it seem like it was a better year than it actually was, and enter the offseason saying we need to actually address our biggest needs and bring in guys, not just veterans who are going to be stopgaps, but actually bring in guys who can be long-term pieces alongside Jaden Daniels to help this Washington team come back. Because I think Washington thought after, the miracle run they made last year, hey, we could just do the same thing and make it again. But clearly that is not going to work. And Adam Peters needs to realize that this Washington team is a good team, but they're not a great team. And they need to become great if they want to seriously contend with the top of the NFL. Moving on, Sunday Night Football, Steelers at the Chargers. LA, huge win. If their offensive line was healthier, this team maybe would have more wins, and they'd be possibly the betting favorite to win the AFC West. But because this offense, their playmakers are clicking with McConkey, Herbert, Keenan Allen, Aranda Gadsden, even Kamani Vidal looked pretty good. And this defense, excellent. We all knew it was great, but it was amazing. It's just with not a lot of offensive line help, Herbert's out there just taking these hits and just hoping he can have enough time to get the ball out. But they're 7-3. They have the Jags next week. Could be 8-3. And the Chargers still can win this AFC West. We'll see down the stretch if they will, but huge win for LA to keep pace with Denver and also create a bigger lead with them and the Chiefs. For Pittsburgh, everybody acted like, the win over the Colts was the reason the Steelers were back. They were not back, okay? The Steelers are as bad as they have been. We all knew that Colts loss, or at least I knew that Colts loss was more so Indy just playing down a competition and Pittsburgh taking advantage of Indy playing bad. It wasn't, oh my God, the Steelers can contend. No, they're 5-4. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games. Should have lost, all 4 games, but now they have the Bengals off the bye, and Joe Burrow, his 21-day practice window started yesterday, so we'll see if Burrow could come back in a couple of weeks since he has some huge games, but that could be a loss. And with Baltimore creeping up with the Steelers, Now it's just a 1 game difference, which is crazy. I mean, when Pittsburgh was 4-1 and the Steelers were, I mean, Ravens were 1-5, it was 3.5 games. Now it's just a 1 game split between these two. And Pittsburgh, once again, they start off hot and then they fall apart, at the end of the year. And it's just going to continue. The Steelers are not going to be contenders. They're just going to, beat up on teams um, that are either bad or they just turn the ball over a lot. And when they play really good teams that are able to stop this offense, which is not very good, despite what some people might say, they just aren't going to win these games. And I mean, the Ravens are, there's a reason why they're the clear favorite to win the North. And then finally, Monday Night Football, Eagles at the Packers. Philly 7-2. And I mean, this defense, amazing. Everybody, is acting like Howie Roseman did like some mega trade at the trade deadline. They traded for 3 guys who are injury prone and were on bad defenses, including a guy like Jair Alexander, who was a healthy scratch on the Ravens defense. But hey, Philly got the win. The offense didn't have to do much. The defense made plays, and when Philly's offense was needed most, they won the game. They've got a huge matchup, like we talked about earlier, against the Lions. So we'll see how that one goes. But Philly, I'm still not that confident that they'll repeat as defending champs, but they still have a very great defense. And this offense, well, it is inconsistent from week to week. I think should be just enough for getting this team to the playoffs. For the Packers, I mean, everybody's calling Green Bay a Super Bowl contender after the first 2 weeks, but 5-3-1, now second place because Detroit's now 6-3. And the Packers, I mean, they just confuse me. Like some weeks, the offense and defense are clicking, and they look like they could go to the Super Bowl. And then other weeks like this, and last week, the offense can't do much. The defense is making plays, but the offense just can't do much. And Jordan Love, he's kind of, he's one of those guys like Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, where he was paid based off one really decent year, but he didn't really show that much to deserve the huge contract. And well, he is a above average starter and a guy who I do believe can, um, make those plays in the playoffs to get a team to the Super Bowl. He's just another guy where it's like he's just super inconsistent week to week, and Green Bay's paying him to be, an elite guy, and it's just not who he is. But that'll do it for this week. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope you guys like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, bye.